Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from The Federalist. It's dated October 2nd. It says, Why the Left Lionizes Communist Cop Killer Assata Shakur. The last name looks familiar. It's because, yes, she is in fact the mother of Tupac. And yes, she is an actual cop killer, and they hold her in some high regard, and this is her, of course. So, let's get on to it. It says, Media outlets and activists glorify Shakur as a revolutionary, but her life of crime and violence tells a far less heroic story. So it says, on Saturday, okay, we're doing good so far, right? Let's do that again. It says, on Saturday, the self-proclaimed, there we go, champions of civil rights sprang from their newsrooms and classrooms to honor the passing of convicted murderer, terrorist, and revolutionary, in scare quotes, of the Black Liberation Army and Black Panthers, Joanne Deborah Byron, commonly referred to as Assata Shakur. The New York Times, among other left-leaning publications, took to X, mourning the death of 78-year-old Shakur, a black revolutionary who found sanctuary in Cuba for decades after escaping from a New Jersey prison, serving a life sentence in 1973 shooting death of a state trooper. The Times tweet included her obituary, which lauded the black militant communist as a heroic freedom fighter of the oppressed. And you probably know what I'm going to say here, which is, of course, she was none of those things. So Shakur's portrayal as a civil rights hero by the left, driven by ideological DEI, misrepresents her legacy as a convicted felon and terrorist, excusing her crimes while reinforcing limited racial stereotypes. And you probably remember, you may not have even watched it. I did a video a few days ago from the time of this one premiering, where I did say something about, what was it? What was the point I was going to make here? That the 1970s were a bad time for terrorism and everything. Well, she was a part of that 1970s violence. Says the leftist innate call for action beyond more measurable activism plays another part, which can be interconnected to ideological DEI. It's an endorsement of violence based upon their justifications of a pseudo-political morality grounded upon perceived social justice. It is adhered to as a righteous religion. It says, under this premise, media outlets, including The Times, The Guardian, and CNN, sought to present a more palatable and humanizing narrative about Shakur. More conservative-leaning networks like the Daily Mail reported on the leftist hypocrisy that actually carried over to the Chicago Teachers Union's X account. Yeah, and you see that tweet right below what I'm reading here. It says, it too honored Shakur, speaking on behalf of 30,000 educators. The post was not well received, with an overwhelming ratio of 6,000 replies to a surprisingly high 3,800 likes. Yeah, so they got ratioed for it, as they should. And there's the nice little community note there. It says that she was convicted in 1977 of first-degree murder in the 1973 killing of a New Jersey state trooper and sentenced to life plus 33 years on other charges. She escaped to Cuba in 1979 and has been a fugitive since, listed on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list in 2013. So, nice person, huh? Let's lionize her. Stupid communist. It says, while media outlets and supporters glorify Shakur as a revolutionary, her life tells a far less heroic story. But what do people know about Shakur? I'd confidently assume very little besides the fact she was godmother to slain rapper Tupac Shakur. Oh, she was godmother. She wasn't actually his mother. I was wrong. Okay. It says, honestly, though, how could this FBI-designated terrorist be anyone's choice as a hero or champion of anything? In Shakur's autobiography, she wrote that her teachers, I don't know why I said teachers unit, that her teachers responded to her as if expecting her not to be intelligent. That is quite noteworthy. She also insisted that the education system sugar-coated the oppression of black Americans. I don't know why I can't seem to be able to read right now, but we're going to keep plugging through. Says, I didn't know what a fool they had made out of me until I grew up and started to read real history, Shakur wrote. I wonder what real history she read, because you ended up being a communist. You didn't read real history. Says her college life during the Vietnam War officially pulled her into politics through general activism and into where she sought ideological refuge, communism. Ironically, that may even describe much of the experiences of today's college students. Best Colleges surveyed the rise of collegiate activism in October 2024, finding that more than 1 in 3 students were actively involved with protests. It says, returning to Shakur in 1967, again, like most students of today, she became woke after 3 years of academic enrichment. So woke and academic enrichment in scare quotes. So she protested the underrepresentation of black faculty in black studies by chaining herself to the entrance of a borough of Manhattan Community College building with 100 other students. Later, Shakur was arrested for trespassing. Not cutting that out. After college, her ideological drive became more extreme as she joined up with the Black Panthers to lead its Harlem chapter. Her autobiography recounts the stint as short-lived, as she left the party because she believed it was too macho and lacking authentic African-American history. She then pivoted to the Viet Cong-inspired Black Liberation Army. The group is known for its urban guerrilla tactics against the U.S. government, ranging from planting bombs, bank holdups, and murdering law enforcement. Her violent activist career began in 1971. Shakur was shot in the abdomen at the Statler Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. The story is described in her memoir as an altercation where, while armed with a revolver, she demanded cash from a guest. And I'm surprised in a communist writing an autobiography is making themselves out to be the bad guy, because she's saying that she had a gun and demanded cash from a guest, so you're the bad guy. I'm kind of surprised at that. I was ready for some total BS to pop up. It says Newsday reported she later told a journalist that drugs were involved, but refused to elaborate further. She had, however, admitted the Black Liberation Army was funded through these acts of terror and crime, such as her own, writing, "There were expropriations, there were bank robberies." Shakur details her criminal ventures at length in her autobiography. In August 1971, she was involved in a bank robbery in Queens. In December, the New York City Police Department named Shakur a suspect in a hand grenade attack that had blown up a police car and injured 2 officers in Queens. In January 1972, law enforcement questioned her in the wounding of a police officer in Brooklyn. In March, she was again questioned, but for an $89,000 Brooklyn bank robbery. The following year, September 1973, I almost said 1873, and I've been like, yeah, probably not. She was suspected of another Brooklyn armed robbery, but at Our Lady of the Presentation Church. Oh, how nice. Yeah, rob a church, yeah, I don't have much sympathy for you. In 1972, Shakur's crimes put her in the sights of the feds with the FBI's nationwide manhunt for her, a suspect involved in a series of cold-blooded murders of New York City police officers. The Bureau detailed her alleged execution-style murders of officers Joseph Piagentini and Waverly Jones in May 1971, along with NYPD officers Gregory Foster and Rocco Laurie in January 1972. Later that year, the New York Times reported she was wanted for questioning in a grenade attack against police, several other police murders, and a Queens bank robbery. So, real nice person. The Chicago's Teachers Union and all these other newspapers are lionizing, huh? Because by June 1973, she had essentially become part of the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force apparatus. Almost daily, briefs were released regarding Shakur's whereabouts and the alleged crimes. Ultimately, she was convicted in 1977 of the charges in the 1973 New Jersey Turnpike shootout. Shakur was convicted of the first-degree murder of Trooper Werner Forster, along with 6 other related felonies. She was sentenced to life in prison plus 26 to 33 years. It's like as if life isn't long enough, we're just going to add to that. While serving her life sentence on November 2nd, 1979, Shakur escaped New Jersey's Clinton Correctional Facility for Women with the assistance of the Black Liberation Army and the May 19th Communist Organization. She then fled to the Bahamas in 1980 and thereafter to Cuba in 1984, where she was granted political asylum. The FBI held a $2 million price on her head ever since, and in 2013, Shakur became the first woman on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. After learning a bit about Assata Shakur, she doesn't seem to be a shoo-in as an honorable civil rights activist, the one today's left demands for us to honor. Objectively, Shakur is a 7-time felon with an activist past marked by serious crimes ranging from bank robbery to murder. So, why does the left celebrate her? So Shakur's celebration by the left stems from the framework of ideological DEI, which thrives on immutable traits like her identity as a black woman. This mindset lowers the bar for accountability under the guise of political justice. Why did I say that? I said social justice is what it says there. Why did I say political? Projecting a stereotypical narrative onto the oppressed. For Shakur, this means her crimes are downplayed, as if she were inherently bound to a criminal fate due to systemic oppression. Such anti-racist equity reduces individuals to monolithic racial stereotypes, stripping away personal responsibility and free will. This approach not only excuses serious crimes, but also perpetuates a limiting, negative view of those it claims to uplift. Recall earlier, Shakur mentioned feeling as if she were viewed as unintelligent by her teachers. This inadequacy, however established, whether through actual racism or a poor attempt at DEI social justice, has the same, if not similar, guiding principles and outcomes. Treating a human being as if they are objects for our social justice ambitions seems commonplace in DEI ideology. It's become the norm to bind groups or classes through this sort of hobby politics. There we go. Feel better now. It tries to remedy the believed oppression. However, it actually mandates a very limiting, stereotypical, or negative future for the so-called oppressed. This diminishes the true sense of self, creating the object for the political left hobbyist. The innate nature of human beings to hold free will vanishes, rendering the victims of ideological DEI oppressed through a lack of virtue of self-mastery. This is why criminals like George Floyd and Assata Shakur are celebrated. The characters fit the designated DEI roles and further cyclically reinforce the ideology. The final facet to which she is honored is through her fulfillment of the violence pledged under the leftist doctrine of social justice. Shakur met all the criteria for an intensively active revolutionary, the kind Antifa and Black Lives Matter aim for. She was met with what she believed to be tyrannical oppression, and through her criminality, she sought justice. Shakur is a dreamboat model for what the far left seeks of today's youth, particularly on college campuses, explosive responders fighting, not in the name of Christ, but for the leftism religion. This is why someone of her pedigree, including those like George Floyd, would be uplifted by today's left. The disregard for past violence through ideological DEI is actually reinforcing violence through their adherence to leftist politics that hinge upon a perceived morality. Action is always a must against evil under these morally guiding principles. So they are lionizing this lady here who killed people and just did things in general. And if you took out the fact that she was a black woman and just said, hey, somebody committed these crimes, how would you punish them? I guarantee you everybody would be like, yeah, they need to go to jail for a long time. But then what if you say like, oh, but it's a black woman? It's like, oh, well, maybe not. Like, come on. Anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Let me know if you agree with like everybody lionizing her and thinking like she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Let me know in those comments, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.